Good morning, Dani. How are you doing today?
Good, Arrow. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm excited to find out how the creation of season 2 came along because, I mean, after the first season and how powerful it was, there had to have been so many people to choose from for this brand new season.
Well, this is actually the 8th season, which is crazy.
What? Well, okay, this is our second season together then. Let's go that route.
Okay. What's been amazing about Family Secrets is I think because every family has them.
Yep.
There's just an endless array of stories, and our biggest challenge every season is to narrow down, who the 10 guests that season are going to be, and try to find ways to create, balance and diversity of different kinds of stories and different kinds of family secrets. But there's just an embarrassment of riches when it comes to different kinds of stories and subject matter.
Do you ever have that inside fear that it's like, because when you go back into your past, that actually gives you permission to rewrite your history? Do you run into that?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I mean, I think we all do rewrite our histories to some degree, because every time we remember something, we remember it differently. That's the way memory literally works in our brains. But I think that when it comes to the discovery of a secret, or that, that a secret has been kept from you, or if you've been keeping a secret, releasing that secret, it really does sort of force you to actually rethink your history in a variety of ways, to re-remember it, to think, did that really happen that way? Or what was really going on behind the scenes at this moment? So there is a kind of, not a rewriting of history in terms of falsifying it, but a kind of a rewriting of history in terms of understanding it.
When you speak of writing, I've been a daily writer for 29 years, and one of the reasons behind that was because if I do have secrets, and I do, the thing is I want it documented so that people that are going to come after me are going to go back and at least get some truth out of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that's been one of the amazing things for me, because this podcast came out of a story that I had discovered about my own family secret. And I've written 11 books at this point. I'd written, I guess, 9 at the time that I had made this discovery. And so in my case, I have this shelf full of books that I've written since my mid-20s that are all there, published books that reveal to me things that I really knew without knowing, without consciously knowing. It's there in black and white on the page between the hardcovers. So it's actually like there's already this trail of breadcrumbs about what I knew at various ages and stages in my life, even though I didn't have all the information yet.
In this age of so much content and social media, isn't it hard to keep a family secret? Because he said, she said, they did.
Oh, well, I think it's virtually impossible now to keep a family secret, which is one of the reasons why, they're all kind of pouring forth now, because you have the combination of easy, accessible, inexpensive DNA testing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how my family secret was discovered, the huge array of different kinds of secrets that people held because they really thought no one could ever know, no one would ever know, that it was, almost like the perfect crime, that it was impossible. And now that is simply not true anymore. And then you add, the age of the internet and social media on top of that, and it's just about impossible. We are, whether we like it or not, and, there's issues of privacy and all sorts of stuff, but we are kind of open books at this point. So it's just not, it's not possible. It's almost not possible to lie anymore either,
right,
which is a good thing.
Right. Do you ever run into those stories, though, to where it's like somebody finally just releases it? It's like, okay, I can't run anymore. Here's what happened. Here's my version of the story. Do some fact checking. You're going to find out that it's pretty exact.
Well, I haven't encountered that on Family Secrets because partly because we always, the guest is always identified.
Yeah,
It's always there's no pseudonyms. It's always, a person who, everybody will know this once they've, millions of people will know this once they've been on the pod. So So it's not, I don't have people coming to me and saying like, fact check this, this is going to turn out to blow your mind. It's more like their minds are already blown. And what they want to do is dig into what does it really mean to make this kind of discovery. So, the tagline on Family Secrets is the secrets that are kept from us, the secrets we keep from others, and the secrets we keep from ourselves. And those really are like three different kinds of baskets for different kinds of secrets.
See, I went through that as a young child where somebody came up to me and said, that dude you're living with there, that's not your dad. That's your stepdad. And I had a difficult time trying to go, what are you talking about? What is a stepdad? And I'll bet you I'm still affected even today by that because I just didn't want someone to be a stepdad.
Well, no doubt. I mean, no doubt that would have been shocking and that you probably are still processing it in some way because first of all, you're being told that by somebody, outside of your family, right? Or
which included, where were the pictures? If this guy that they're talking about is my real father, where are the pictures? And then that got me into big trouble because I went searching. I was going through everything of my mother's. You don't do that kind of stuff as a kid.
Yeah, but of course you did. It's funny because like in a lot of my writing, and then this also comes up on the podcast all the time. I mean, kids snoop.
Yeah.
I mean, kids have, kind of a natural curiosity at a certain point about, their parents and their parents' private lives or whatever. But I snooped like crazy as a kid. And one of the things that I've seen and heard from many of my guests is that we share that. So there's kind of this way in which either if you suspect that there's something that's off, or like in your case, you were told that something was off, but you don't want to believe it, or you don't believe it because it's so implausible. I mean, what kid really entertains the possibility that their parent isn't their parent? If we're told that our parents are our parents, we believe that because our identity springs from that very, that's our origin story. And so if that gets rocked, we are going to want to know, and we're going to search like crazy to find out what the truth is, because it's literally the truth of us, of how we came to exist.
So how do you handle the art of restart in the way that when you bring out a story on the podcast, Family Secrets, for many people, that's a new beginning, a first step?
Well, often my guests have made meaning out of their stories already, which is one of the ways that I find them. So a lot of my guests are writers of memoirs or filmmakers who have made a documentary about their story.
Yeah.
And many of them are not are just civilians, private citizens who have either called in on the Family Secrets hotline and have an amazing story to tell. But what I try to be sure is that it's somebody who's ready for that story to be out there, because that's a big responsibility for me. That's a big responsibility for the show. I would never want somebody to regret having told their story on Family Secrets. That would be terrible. I mean, the person who I'm most interested in making happy on this show actually is my guest. I want them to feel that I held their story with a lot of care, because I'm not coming at this as a journalist. I'm not coming at this in a kind of, prurient, salacious, oh my God, you're not going to believe this story kind of way. I'm really coming at it as somebody who started this podcast because I too had my world rocked. Yeah. So it's coming from a place of deep empathy, and I don't want my guests to feel that way.
So you do exactly what I love to do. Share your story, or someone will write it for you. I'm giving you an opportunity to share your story, because it's going to help other people. Your experiences, good or bad, it's still lessons in life for another circle.
Which is an incredibly healing thing. I mean,
Yes.
when it comes to, research about trauma, one of the things that we really know is that the people who get really stuck are the ones who are helpless, who have witnessed something or seen something or know something or have had something done to them that they can't make meaning out of, that they're just trapped inside of it. And, storytelling makes meaning, and connecting with other people, sharing our stories and having other people feel like, oh, me too, or I understand that, or this happened to a friend of mine, or just it creates the wider web of a sense that we are also profoundly connected, interconnected, and we're more alike than we are different. And there's something that is tremendously healing about that, both for my guests and for listeners. That's something I hear all the time that really just is so satisfying for me as the creator of the show.
What you don't do in your show, and which I really love, is that you don't make it sound like a soundbite show. And I love that, because when I'm driving down the road and I'm headed into a very crowded group of cars, I need to be in a place in my mind. And you take me there with Family Secrets, where I don't have to sit there and feel like it's a news story after a news story after a news story.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that, because we put a lot of care into each episode to make each episode a story. It's highly produced. I write a script that I think of as really trying to hold the story of my guest, or be the container for it. And it's sort of the somebody described it to me recently as the grace notes of the story. And so I think it becomes very absorbing for listeners, as opposed to, I don't want to be driving along in my car or even standing there and folding my laundry and be barraged. I don't want to, we're all barraged all the time. I don't want to be barraged by the news. I don't want to be barraged by, something that just feels really sort of assaultive. I want a story in my ears that I can get absorbed in and really be thinking about and get inside of.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I was on TV, the way my photographer, we'd go out, he says, I don't want you on the camera all the time, because people are walking through the house. They don't need to be looking at you. They need to be looking at the atmosphere around you. And so so he taught me that. And I think that's the reason why I'm so attached to the show, is that I can go out and do other things and still listen to this and still tap into it.
Oh, I love that. And also, I think that's why audio and podcasts and audio in general are such a huge part of our culture these days, because there's a kind of intimacy in listening, in just having something in your ears, being able to visualize it, being able to make of it, what you see, and not what's being necessarily shown to you.
Yeah, I would love to hear you do a show on this author, E.B. Zaboy, because her book, which is called Nigeria Jones, is about how she thinks her mother is, and then when she starts doing research on the background of her mother, she is not, and it's dealing with that. And I just would love to hear how you take your angle and get someone to open their story and listen to that voice.
I love that. I just made a note of it. I don't know her book. I'll definitely look it up, because that, for me, when I'm talking with somebody for the show, what really is the sweet spot for me is when my guest says to me, I've never thought about that before. Yep. That's what I'm going for. I mean, I talk to a lot of people who have told their story many times. I mean, last season I spoke to Katie Couric, for example, and I remember prepping for my conversation with Katie and thinking, I'm talking to Katie Couric. She's the queen of interviewing, first of all. So, hashtag intimidation. But also, she had a huge bestseller and she had been telling her story a lot. And I wanted to crack that open. And that moment happened in that episode. And I thought, yay. I mean, that is, to me, it's the difference between reporting and storytelling, is how can we find, storytelling is so much about discovering what belongs to what. Yeah. What piece of this story connects with this other piece of the story in a way that maybe we haven't thought of before. So that's what I'm going for.
How many times have you bumped into a family secret and the person that you're with just knows that it's going to affect their legacy, or it has affected their legacy, and so the story it has changed, and they've got a whole new set of rules inside, or their disciplines in their life at this point in time?
Oh, I think that the discovery of a big family secret does change the legacy. It does change the history. Mm-hmm. I mean, it often drills down all the way to the very essence of identity. I mean, many of the stories that we tell on Family Secrets have to do with someone discovering that they're, that they were lied to about their ethnicity. Yes. Their racial makeup, that I've had guests who grew up thinking that they were, and one in particular I'm thinking of, Lacey Schwartz thought that she was a white Jewish girl with two white Jewish parents growing up in Woodstock, New York. And, but something didn't quite add up. She really didn't look anything like her family. She really looked like, people would question that a lot. And when she went to college, she was invited to join the African American Students Union.
Yep.
And it was like, whoa, what? And she went home and confronted her mother and discovered, really what was kind of plain as day all along, but no one would acknowledge, which was that her mother had had an affair with an African American man, and that Lacey was in fact, half Black, and that how can that not change completely a sense of self, of legacy, of history, of future. So many stories when we find out that a parent, like you did, that the parent that we thought was a biological parent wasn't, and that we were not told, that changes. You're changing the root system. So once you're changing the root system is the root system, but you're learning the truth about it. And once that is revealed, then everything that springs from that root system has to be re-understood, and the legacy changes.
How often do you look at an ancient photograph of a family, the old black and whites, stare into their eyes and really think, there's a story here, but I've got to figure out how to get it?
Oh, I think that all the time. I mean, both, about my own old family photos, where it turns out that fully half of the people I thought were my ancestors are not. And then, newly discovered photos of the people who actually are my ancestors, where I look into their eyes and think, who are you? I was never told any of the stories about you. You're strangers to me, and yet I come from you. What do we do with those kinds of ancient history? I mean, I was fascinated recently. I was in Naples, Italy, and was able to go into a catacomb. And there were all of these skulls of, like from the Greco-Roman era. And they had all been discovered during an archaeological dig. And they were literally all dumped into a big plastic laundry basket. And I looked at these skulls, and all I could think of was, these people right next to each other, they could have been, forever, they could have been mortal enemies. Mm-hmm. They could have been, in blood feuds with each other. And yet at the end of the day, they are, they're skulls in a basket that are living side by side thousands of years later. I mean, stuff like that. I'm never going to get to the bottom of those family secrets, but it fascinates me.
What about family forward? In other words, like, because my daughter has two children, and it's like, you sometimes, they act and react in ways I'm going, you've got a secret. And it's like, I'm not going there because I wouldn't want them to go into my past.
Well, I think, keeping a secret is a different animal than having a secret kept from you.
Yeah.
And it is a burden. A guest of mine in the current season, Carmen Rita Wong, whose episode just dropped, has a great line about this, which is, she says, when you bury a secret, you bury it alive.
Ooh.
Isn't that just chilling? I love that.
Oh my God.
I know. And it's true. I mean, I've read a great deal of what people over time, great thinkers have said about secrets. And I think that that's one of the all-time best things that I've heard. And so when you're keeping a secret, essentially you're keeping something that is alive and that has the power to haunt. It haunts other people and it haunts you. It is a burden. We use the word weight, like the weight of a secret.
Yeah.
We're like literally carrying something that is heavy.
Yep. Yeah, very physical. Dani, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. I'm so in love with your podcast, and I'm hoping that you do the 2 extra episodes like you did at the end of last season, because when you get addicted to a show like this, you just want to keep hearing more and more and more.
Oh, Arrow, thank you so much. I love hearing that, and I love to talk to you anytime.
Excellent. Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.